so without further ado, let's crack on. When medical students start their course, the lecturer often begins by telling them in 10 years' time, 50% of what they learn on the course will be wrong. I can do better. In 5 minutes' time, everything you have learned in your life so far will be wrong. Let's start with the dawn of consciousness. We've probably watched the setting sun going down night after night and thought, there must be thousands of those things over the horizon. Until somebody thought, no, wait a minute, there's only one sun and it's revolving around the Earth, which is at the centre of everything. Well, of course it is, isn't it? Because the Earth doesn't move. And when you look up at the sky, everything else moves around us. And by the way, it's a myth that anyone ever thought that the Earth was flat. Nobody was ever that ignorant. Anyway, then along came Copernicus, who through careful observation discovered that actually no, it's the Earth revolving around the Sun. So a current theory had to be amended, which is how science works. But in his day there was one slight problem. The spreading of knowledge was very slow. This was largely due to the fact that most knowledge was contained in books, which were handmade. And books were often copied from other books, so if there was an error in the original book, it merely got duplicated. And the invention of the printing press merely speeded this up. For example, the iron content of spinach was misreported when the typesetters put the decimal point in the wrong place. By the time the error had been discovered, the information had escaped into modern folklore. And history is a lot like spinach, in that people have a false idea about it. If a ruler won a battle because they were less stupid than their opponent or had dumb luck, they would report it in such a way that it made themselves out to appear wiser and stronger than their opponent. Now this idea was so good that it was taken up by all leaders. Now propaganda is not interested in expanding knowledge, only in controlling information and influencing those people who receive the information. And verifying any facts is quite difficult. And that always assumes that everyone involved in telling the story is trying to do it as honestly and as objectively as they can. And as we know, some news outlets don't give a toss about honesty and objectivity. I mean, take the simple fact of your age. Your bodily cells are replaced in their entirety every 7 years. Does that mean that you can only ever be 7 years old? But the molecules that make up the cells are billions of years old. So are you as old as the stars? The basic laws of physics break down at the quantum level. Solid matter is more space than solid by a factor of hundreds, right? And merely observing an event changes it. So how can science be objective in such an environment? And it also appears our universe is expanding at an accelerating rate. Now with our current level of knowledge, that means 90% of the universe is missing. We call it dark matter. We might as well call it no freaking idea. So I bring you back to Copernicus because I don't know if he ever existed. I'm told he did by books and by teachers, but as we have seen, they can often be wrong. And in fact, all the information I've given to you in this presentation has been derived from these sources. Well, surely we can trust our eyes. Look at the squares marked A and B. Now, A looks darker than B, but our brains make stuff up. We have a blind spot which we don't see because our brains fill in the missing information. In reality, squares A and B are exactly the same colour. But it's the way our brains see patterns that fool us. And even as we are presented with the evidence, our eyes attempt to adjust for the illusion. So what are we left with? Philosophy and ideas? Probably. But this assumes that our brains are in charge. What if it's our bodies that's in charge and merely gives the instruction to the brain to figure out the best way of achieving the objective? Ask any woman why she needs to buy a pair of impractical shoes and her brain will come up with many reasons, some of which might even make sense. But it's her body which is making the decision and just instructing her brain to figure out the best way of getting the shoes, which means we have no free will. Now some of you will see this woman spinning in a clockwise direction and others of you will see her spinning in an anti-clockwise direction. Now is that you deciding, or is it just the materialistic way your neurons are put together producing a predetermined result? So we can see the more we discover about the world, the less we understand how it works. And if we extrapolate from this, we will know for sure that we understand absolutely nothing. And so paradoxically, the more intelligent and knowledgeable you are, the more doubtful you are of your own reality. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from Gloria Steinem. The truth will set you free, But first, it will piss you off. Thanks very much.